Hello students, in the previous video I gave you the introduction of chapter 6 life processes. Today we'll start with photosynthesis. I completed the topic nutrition. I told you about the autotrophic and the heterotrophic organisms, and now today I'll start from autotrophic nutrition. Auto means self, trophic word comes from food. So, autotrophic nutrition means the organism which can prepare their food themselves, or we can say that the organisms which manufacture their food on their own are called as autotrophs, and this kind of nutrition is called as autotrophic nutrition. Now let's see what is written in NCERT. I'll explain you NCERT word by word. Carbon and energy requirements of the autotrophic organisms are fulfilled by photosynthesis. As you all are aware that the green plants and the autotrophic bacteria, they can make their food on their own. They need not to take prepared food from outside. They have the ability to manufacture the food in their body, but for that purpose they require raw material from outside. So carbon and energy requirements of autotrophic organisms are fulfilled by the process of photosynthesis. Now let's see what the process of photosynthesis exactly is. With the help of this particular diagram, you try to understand. This is sun and the plants are getting sunlight. These are the green plants which have chlorophyll pigment present in chloroplast in them. Their cells have chloroplast cell organelle which contains the pigment chlorophyll. Now the plant absorbs carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and it prepares the food inside its body in the leaves, in the green parts of the plant, and it takes the minerals and water through the roots. Okay, through the roots water and minerals are taken up from the environment. It is taking sunlight and carbon dioxide. So these are the raw materials required by the plant for the manufacture of food. Now the food that is manufactured in the body of the plants is carbohydrates, and oxygen is released out as a byproduct of the reaction. Okay, we'll try to understand it once again with the help of this equation which is written in an NCERT. Carbon dioxide plus water in the presence of chlorophyll and sunlight gives glucose. The formula for glucose is C6H12O6, and oxygen is released as the byproducts. So what are the raw materials for photosynthesis? Carbon dioxide, water, chlorophyll and sunlight. And what is the product that is formed as a result of photosynthesis? Glucose and oxygen. So if you are asked about the definition of photosynthesis, then you will mention that photosynthesis is the process by which autotrophs take in substances from outside. Which substances? Carbon dioxide and water, and convert them into stored form of energy, that is the carbohydrates. See, this is the stored form of energy. This is the carbohydrates. It is being manufactured in the body of plants, and this process is taking place in the presence of sunlight and chlorophyll. So it is necessary to mention all these points while you are mentioning about the process of photosynthesis. You have to mention about carbon dioxide, water, formation of carbohydrate, sunlight and chlorophyll. All these points are important. Now carbohydrates are utilized for providing energy to the plant. Here in the body of the plant, when the carbohydrates are manufactured, they are utilized for energy requirement by the plant. In whichever process the plant requires energy, the carbohydrates are being used. And the carbohydrates which are not being used, they are stored in the body of the plant. And they are stored in the body of plant in which form? In the form of starch. The carbohydrates which are not used immediately are stored in the form of starch, which serves as the internal energy reserve to be used as and when required by the plant. So whenever energy is required by the plant, then starch is used. So I hope you understand that carbohydrates are formed in the body of the plant as a result of photosynthesis, and the carbohydrates which are not used, they are stored in the form of starch. The energy derived from food that we eat, it is stored in our body in the form of glycogen. This difference you must understand, that in the body of animals the stored form of energy is glycogen. The food that we eat, we get energy from it, but the carbohydrates which are not utilized, they are stored in the form of glycogen in animal's body. And whenever energy is required in the body of animals, then carbohydrate is this form of carbohydrate, that is glycogen, is utilized. But in case of plants, the starch is the stored form of energy. Now let's move further. We'll talk about the events of photosynthesis. Events, or we can say the steps of photosynthesis. See what I have just told you, that when the photosynthesis process takes place, then the sunlight is absorbed by the plants, and it is absorbed by the chlorophyll pigment which is present in the plants. So the very first step in the process of photosynthesis is absorption of light by chlorophyll. These three steps are very important, so listen to it very carefully. The first step is absorption of light energy by chlorophyll pigment that is present in the chloroplast of green plants. Conversion of light energy to chemical energy, and splitting of water molecules into hydrogen and oxygen. Now the absorbed energy, that is the absorbed light energy from the that we get from that the plants get from sunlight, it is converted to chemical energy, and splitting of water also takes place. See here with this diagram you will be able to understand 6 molecules. Here they have shown you carbon dioxide and water molecules. Water molecule is split. Okay, split, I hope you understand. Split means it is breaking into two parts, and it is getting split into hydrogen and oxygen. Okay, so hydrogen and oxygen, when water is being split, it is forming hydrogen and oxygen. Now what is happening? What is the next step? The hydrogen, it is combining with, it is adding to carbon dioxide, and when we add, when hydrogen is added to a compound, then this process is called as reduction. So carbon dioxide is reduced to carbohydrates. Here see, if we compare carbon dioxide to carbohydrate, carbon is there, oxygen is there, but where has this hydrogen come from? It has come from water. When the water splits into two parts, hydrogen and oxygen is released in the environment, that is the byproduct of carbon photosynthesis, and hydrogen is being added to carbon dioxide, and carbon dioxide is being converted to glucose. I'll explain you once again, quickly try to understand. The very first step of photosynthesis is absorption of light energy by chlorophyll pigment. The second step is the conversion of light energy. First is absorption of light energy, second is conversion of light energy to chemical energy, and splitting of water. See, there are two reactants in the process of photosynthesis. Here you see there are two reactants, carbon dioxide and water, and what is being formed? Glucose and oxygen. Now you look at this particular diagram. These are the reactants, carbon dioxide and water. Water is being split into two parts, hydrogen and oxygen, the hydrogen it would add to carbon dioxide, thus carbon dioxide is reduced to carbohydrate and oxygen is released in the environment. So that is how these products are being formed, glucose and oxygen. Reduction of, the third step is reduction of carbon dioxide to carbohydrates. These steps need not take place one after the other immediately. For example, desert plants, what exactly happens in the desert plant? They take carbon dioxide at the night time. They prepare an intermediate in their body, and which is then acted upon by energy absorbed by the chlorophyll during the day. That means these steps that I have just told you, it's not necessary that they are going to take place in the plant body one after the other. For example, in case of desert plant, absorption of energy by the chlorophyll takes place. Okay, they take up carbon dioxide, but the further processes take place during the daytime. The energy absorbed by the chlorophyll, it acts on the intermediate, which is formed at the night time in case of desert plants. Let us see how each of the components of the above reaction are necessary for photosynthesis. Now I'll be showing you two activities which would demonstrate the different components which are necessary for the process of photosynthesis. If we carefully observe a cross section of a leaf under the microscope, you will notice that some cells contain green dots. These green dots are cell organelles called chloroplast, which contain chlorophyll. So before we move further, I'll show you the cross section of the leaf. See, this is a leaf. This is the cross section of the leaf. This is the midrib, and this is the green part is the lamina or the leaf blade. This is the vein they have shown you. So this particular part is enlarged and it is shown here in this particular diagram. Here in the midrib, what is present? Phloem and xylem, which together form the vascular bundle through which the conduction of water, minerals and food take place. So right now we are not talking about xylem, phloem and vascular bundle. We will just concentrate on photosynthesis part. So this particular part is enlarged and it is shown to you. So here you can see the upper epidermis of the leaf, and this is the lower epidermis of the leaf. Now on the lower epidermis of the leaf you can see a pore. Okay, this pore is what? Stomata, and it is formed by two guard cells. These are the two guard cells. They have named it here. There are air spaces in between, and chloroplast pigment they have shown you. Chloroplast cell organelle, it is present in the body of in the cell of the plant cell, and chloroplast contains chlorophyll. Okay, and there is a waxy cuticle on the surface of the leaf above the upper epidermis. So with this particular diagram, it is clear to you that the chloroplast pigment is present on the it is the cell organelle which is present in the plant cells, and it contains chlorophyll. Now let's talk about the two activities. The first activity, that is 6.1. First I'll tell you the activity, then after that we will read what exactly is written in NCERT. What we'll do in this activity, we'll take a variegated plant. Variegated plant is the plant which is on which the entire leaf is not green in color. Somewhere it is green, some other part is let's say white or of any other color. This is croton and this is money plant. Now what is done? We first pluck the leaf and then we draw its sketch on a paper, and we mark those areas which are green in color and which are non-green in color. After that, what do? We boil the leaf in water. After that, we boil the leaf in alcohol, and this is boiled in this particular manner, we directly do not boil, do not heat alcohol, as it catches fire very easily. This question was is asked many times in your exams, ki why directly alcohol is not heated. The answer is because it catches fire very easily, it is inflammable. Okay, so what do? We prepare water bath. Water bath is what? We heat up water in a beaker, and we are heating alcohol indirectly. We are not heating it directly, but we are heating it indirectly. Okay, so we add the leaf in alcohol, and we put the alcohol in the test tube. We put the leaf in it. We boil water and place the test tube in the water bath. We heat it for some time. Now, what is the purpose of heating the leaf in alcohol? The chlorophyll pigment, it dissolves in alcohol. So after some time, after the boiling process, the leaf loses its color and it becomes colorless, and you can clearly see the alcohol color turning green. Now what do we do after that? We take out the leaf, wash it in water, and then we place it on a tile or on a marble piece. Then what do? We put iodine to it, and when we put iodine to it, the parts which were having starch, they would turn blue black in color. Okay, now if you compare both these leaves, then you can easily say that you can easily conclude that the part which was green in color, in this part which was green in color, it has turned blue black, and the portion which was white in color, it remains as it is. It is not turning blue black. So from here we can conclude that chlorophyll pigment is necessary for photosynthesis, and wherever chlorophyll pigment was present on the leaf, in that particular portion only starch formation has taken place, and that is why it was giving the positive test for starch on addition of iodine. Clear? I'll repeat the last point again. You know about starch test. If we add iodine to any substance, anything that contains starch, then what happens? It turns blue black. Okay, when iodine is added to starch, then it turns blue black. This is called as the iodine test. Okay, now if we add starch to the leaf, the portion which was green in color, which was having the presence of starch, only that particular portion is going to turn blue black in color. So now let's read. This is the diagram that they have given in the book. Variegated leaf they have shown you, and after addition, after starch test, they have shown you the same leaf. Okay, now let's read what is written in NCERT. Let us do an activity which demonstrates that chlorophyll is essential for photosynthesis. Take a potted plant with variegated leaf, for example, money plant or croton. This is the money plant and this is croton. Okay. Keep the plants in dark room for 3 days so that the starch gets used up. Now keep the plant in sunlight for about 6 hours. So what do we first do? We keep the plant in dark so that whatever the starch was present in the plant, it gets utilized. Then we keep it in sunlight for about 6 hours. So when we keep it in sunlight for 6 hours, photosynthesis takes place in it. Now we pluck a leaf from the plant and we mark the green areas. Okay? We take the leaf and we draw its sketch on a paper and we mark the areas which are green in color and which are non-green in color. Now dip the leaf in boiling water for few minutes. We boil it in, keep it in boiling water so that the cell wall it breaks. After this, immerse it in beaker containing alcohol. Okay, this you have just seen. Carefully place the above beaker in water bath. Directly we are not heating, we are keeping heating the leaf in alcohol in a water bath, and heat till the alcohol begins to boil, and slowly we can also see that the color of the alcohol becomes green. What happens to the color of the leaf? color of the leaf fades, it becomes whitish, and what happens to the color of the solution? The color of the solution becomes greenish. Now dip the leaf in a dilute solution of iodine for few minutes. Take out the leaf and rinse off the iodine solution. Now we put the iodine solution and then we observe the color of the leaf and compare this with the tracing of the leaf done in the beginning. What can you conclude from the presence of starch in the various areas of the leaf? So when we put iodine solution to the parts to the leaf, the parts which were green in color, they turn blue black, and other parts which were whitish in color, what happens to them? They remain as it is. So from this particular activity we conclude that chlorophyll is essential for photosynthesis, because the green portions contain chlorophyll, and that was the particular area, that green area is the only area which is showing the positive test for iodine, that is the starch test. Now let us study how the plants need carbon dioxide for photosynthesis. I told you about the stomata. These are the stomata which has the stomatal pore. It has the stomata for the exchange of gases, and for water loss also, the water loss, it also takes place through these tiny pores, and exchange of gases, that means exchange of carbon dioxide and oxygen, also takes place through these pores. And they also have stomata, and these they are made up of two kidney shaped cells which are called as the guard cells. So this particular diagram shows you the open stomata, and this is the closed stomatal pore. Now let us study how the plant need carbon dioxide for photosynthesis. Stomata are tiny pores present on the surface of the leaves. Okay, and generally we would observe that stomata are numerous in number on the lower surface of the leaf as compared to the upper surface of the leaf. Massive amount of gaseous exchange takes place in the leaves through these pores for the purpose of photosynthesis. This statement means that for the purpose of photosynthesis we require carbon dioxide and oxygen is to be released out. Now both these processes are taking place through the stomatal pore only. But it is important to note here that exchange of gases occur across the surface of stem, roots and leaves as well. So this gaseous exchange is not just limited to stomata. Gaseous exchange is not limited to leaves only. It takes place through the roots also and through the stems also. Since large amount of water can also be lost through these stomata, the plant closes these pores when it does not need carbon dioxide for photosynthesis. Like you can see in the diagram, they have shown you the closed stomatal pores. So if when the it is not required, when the through the open pore water loss can also take place. So when it is not required that the plant should lose water, at that particular time the stomatal pore is closed. The opening and the closing of the pore is the function of the guard cells. The guard cells swell when water flows into them, causing the stomatal pore to open. Similarly, the pore closes if the guard cells shrink. Very important point. What is the meaning of this statement? When water is present in the guard cells, then they swell up and the pore is open. But when water is not present, water is not absorbed by the guard cell, at that time they remain in shrink position and the pore remains closed. Now let us see one more activity. Activity 6.2. Take two healthy potted plants which are nearly the same size. Keep them in dark room for 3 days. Now place each plant on separate glass plates. Place a watch glass containing potassium hydroxide by the side of one of the plants. The potassium hydroxide is used to absorb carbon dioxide. Cover both plants with separate bell jars as shown in figure 6.4. So here what is shown in this particular activity, that we are going to take two plants of the similar size and we will keep them in dark room for 2 to 3 days, so that whatever the starch is present in their body, it gets used up. In one of the bell jar we will place potassium hydroxide, okay, and we will not place it in the other jar. Now if we leave it like this and we keep them under sunlight, then what do we observe? We are asked to perform this activity, and then we are asked to write what we conclude from this particular activity. Cover both plants with separate bell jars as shown. Use Vaseline to seal the bottom of the jar to the glass plate so that the setup is airtight, so that air cannot enter in it. We have sealed it from these sides so that air does not enter it. Now keep the plants in sunlight for 2 hours. Pluck a leaf from each plant and check for the presence of starch in the above activity. Okay. Now what happens when we keep it under sunlight? Then photosynthesis should take place in their body. But here in this particular bell jar, as carbon dioxide was present, so photosynthesis would take place in this. But when we place potassium hydroxide in this particular bell jar, then what happens? Potassium hydroxide is very reactive. It reacts with carbon dioxide and it absorbs it. So carbon dioxide is not available to the plant, and when it is not available to the plant, then it won't be able to perform photosynthesis. So if we test both these plants for the presence of starch, then what would happen? It would show positive test for starch. Starch would be formed in their body, and when we would put iodine, then we'll get blue-black color. But what happens in this particular case? As carbon dioxide was being absorbed, then photosynthesis will not take place in this particular plant, and it will not give positive test for iodine. That means the leaves will not turn blue-black in color. So from this activity, what do we conclude? We conclude that carbon dioxide is necessary for photosynthesis. Potassium hydroxide, it reacts with carbon dioxide and it forms potassium hydroxide and water. No carbon dioxide is available to the plant, and in the absence of carbon dioxide, the plant is unable to perform photosynthesis and thus starch is not formed. So if we perform iodine test, then iodine does not turn the leaf into blue-black color. The plant leaf in the bell jar without potassium hydroxide, what will happen to it? It will give the positive test for starch. Iodine solution here turns the leaf blue-black. So what is the inference or the conclusion from this activity? That carbon dioxide is necessary for the plant for photosynthesis and starch formation. Based on two activities performed above, can we design an experiment to demonstrate that sunlight is essential for photosynthesis? So far we have talked about how autotrophs meet their energy requirements, but they also need other raw materials for building their body. What are the other raw materials that the plants require for building their body? They require water, they require minerals, and they absorb water and minerals through the roots. Other materials like nitrogen, phosphorus, iron and magnesium, they are also taken up from the soil. Nitrogen is very essential for the functioning of plant. So it is essential for synthesis of proteins and other compounds also. It is taken up from inorganic nitrates and nitrites which are present in the soil, or it is taken up as organic compounds which have been prepared by bacteria from atmospheric nitrogen. See, the roots of the plant, some plants, they have nitrogen fixing bacteria. Okay, for example, leguminous plants, they in the root nodules they have nitrogen fixing bacteria, and these bacteria, they can manufacture they can convert atmospheric nitrogen into organic compounds which contain nitrogen, so that these organic compounds are easily available to the plant. Okay, so the plants, they either absorb nitrogen from the soil in the form of inorganic nitrates or nitrites, or they absorb organic compounds containing nitrogen, which are prepared by the bacteria which are present in their root nodules. And these bacteria, they convert atmospheric nitrogen into organic compounds which contain nitrogen. So that's all about the autotrophic nutrition. Next, in the next lecture, we'll cover heterotrophic nutrition.